This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. James Jabali works for the railroad in Chattanooga to keep busy after retiring from the family textile business, and then he decided to write about something very close to him that he thought might help others in his book, Deception Exponentially, The Multiple Effect.
My family has a history of mental illness, and mental health is real close to my heart. And I was affected as a child. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 1996 after going through a lot of anxiety and depression and a lot of life problems. And the physical toll that it was taking on me and mental toll finally led me to seek rehabilitation.
You went back to school, right?
Yes.
So you could learn more about it.
That's correct. It's really a self-help book. I began journaling when I started my recovery, and I thought, I'm writing all this stuff down. If something could just help someone, because people who suffer from depression tend to shut down because of the stigma. There's such a stigma on mental illness that it's embarrassing for most people who suffer from it. And mental health is one of the most important things, I feel, in life today. I mean, you see so much trauma, so much depression, so much the suicide rate is unbelievable right now. I don't know if you know, but somewhere around 22 people commit suicide per day.
It's pretty frightening. And certainly when you walk around any of our major cities and you see all the homeless people, and, most of them are mentally ill.
That's correct. In society, there's a misconception about addiction, alcoholism, and other mental illness being an individual disease when it actually is a familial disease. Most people think, if there's a drug addict in the family, that's where the problem is. The problem is lies in the family and the family dynamics. So if an addict or an alcoholic decides they want help, then it has to be a community effort. A person can't just do what they call cold turkey. That does not work. So if you've ever seen the show on TV called Intervention, at the end when they bring in the family and confront the alcoholic seems fine. Everything's great, but the rest of the family is absolutely falling apart. And now the successful ones, the interventions that turn out successful, are generally the ones where other members of the family say, listen, this is, I have to understand my problems and my part in this situation. So they decide to get help. And when that happens, then it's usually a successful outcome.
Is that what you did?
Yes. It hit me when I was drinking. I was isolating. I didn't want to talk to anyone anymore. I was embarrassed about myself. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. Drinking alcohol and doing drugs does not feel good. It just feels different. So if it just feels different, what's that feeling that I'm trying to move away from? And that's what made me decide to get help.
How did your family react? Because you're telling, in admitting that you have a problem, you're telling them they have a problem.
Yeah. When a child picks up a quality or a behavior, it may not be like the behavior of their father or mothers, but the obsessive compulsive behavior manifests itself in another behavior. For example, the preacher's daughter syndrome, the old saying, dad is obsessed with religion and everybody sees that as wonderful. But then the daughter is obsessed, but she doesn't want to do the same thing that her father's doing because it sounds ludicrous to her. So she begins her own behaviors, which may be unhealthy behaviors.
So in your book, you're encouraging people to examine themselves and to get help.
Absolutely.
And not to do it alone.
Yes.
All right, James, thank you. H.W. Walker always wanted to write, but being dyslexic, he would get frustrated. And then something happened on April 17th, 2017, and now he's written a trilogy with the first book entitled The Awakening, The Evolution Wars. So what happened on April 17th, 2017?
It's the first day I wrote the first word for The Awakening.
Wow.
My book is about the modern world ending instantly, basically. And like we're from where we're at right now to 200 years in the past. And if you don't know how to live 200 years in the past, you're going to have a hard time. And it's the result of aliens that have been manipulating us for thousands of years. And this is their first major move to kind of get rid of us.
There was a crash at Roswell in your book, and this is where it all begins, and there's a war going on.
Actually, it started a lot sooner than that. You can look at, and all of the sightings I use in my book about aliens in the past are all dates of actual UFO or alien sighting incidents in history. One at the beginning of World War one at the beginning of World War II. The Black Death was the aliens. The Renaissance was the friendly aliens that are helping us. They saved mankind. This is kind of a historical fact, but I haven't actually backed it up with a lot of research. Is beer saved the human race? Of course, they called it ale then. Right at the time of the Black Death, they learned how to make ale, and they boiled everything to make it, which gave them disinfected drinks that kept the whole world from just getting sick from drinking the water. So I made that one of the alien attacks. I told them the Renaissance was like the beginning of their attacks, because my theory in the book is the aliens have been slowly infecting us with more and more of their knowledge and technologies and things to inhibit our evolutionary growth.
So in your book, you have a dream and your wife doesn't believe you. And when you go to tell her about it, your minds connect.
The two dreams that are mentioned are true dreams. And William is the first one where his evolution is catching up with where it should be. And all humans should be doing what he's doing, but they've all been inhibited. So when his wife says, okay, I'll really listen and really means it, when they connect, their minds connect. And from that time on, because of their already emotional connections, it's the strongest link that he'll ever make. And now she can see everything he sees by just seeing his memories. But anything that wasn't running, people start figuring out will still run. But if it was running, it'll never run again. So in the opening of the book, approximately any given day, at any given time of the day, there is close to something like 8 million people flying, almost 9 million. Then you take the number of people on cruise ships, trains, and just in cars and trucks traveling, they're all in trouble because there's no help coming and there's no way out. So, like 40 million people die in like the first three chapters. At the end of the first book, William and his family are now the most powerful group of humans left. And they're trying to unify all of the remaining humans to get ready for the attack that he knows is coming. By the end of the first book, he has already exposed one alien in the Battle of LA. And so people have seen it. And now the aliens that are here are spreading lies, but he is slowly getting the truth out. And at the end of the first book, they're pretty much got all of the people that are around almost completely in line and unified. And then going into the second book, they're unifying. It's called the Unification Wars. They're unifying what's left of the human race into one force to be ready for when the aliens actually come, because they have an invasion force on the way.
Okay, nice cliffhanger there. Talk to you when your next book comes out. All right, Thomas Kent retired in Monterey, California after developing a breathalyzer that's installed in the cars of people who get DUIs so they can go to work, which could be a book in itself, right? But first, from this creative mind, Thomas conceived Orphans Through My Window.
The story takes place in Lansing, Michigan, which is the capital of Michigan. It has to do with a fairly young guy. He's probably 14 years old. His name is Spencer Helms. And Spencer was born with a malady which does not allow him to speak at all. So he ran into a lot of trouble early on in his life as far as like going to school and trying to deal with the public. So what has happened is he's homeschooler. He stays at home. His parents are fairly upscale folks. His father is a speech writer for senators and congressmen in Washington, D.C. His mother is a secretary to a senator. So they end up having to spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Consequently, Spencer has been raised primarily by a nanny. Her name is Geneva. And Spencer and Geneva have a very special relationship. She's a black lady. So Spencer spends a lot of time in his bedroom. He has a large window in his bedroom, and he's found that he does have a special gift for sketching. And so there's a large oak tree right outside of his window, and there's a family of squirrels that live in this tree. And this one particular squirrel seems to just be a great model for him. Her name is Dell, and she poses in a lot of different situations, which gives Spencer a great opportunity to sketch her. What happens is, after a while, Dell begins communicating with Spencer telepathically, and they can hear each other's thoughts. And this is just absolutely mind-blowing for Spencer. So they begin to develop a relationship which ends up being, once again, very special. As time goes on, Spencer begins to learn that there's some trouble next door. These two young folks have been adopted, and there's some violence going on next door, which is very disturbing. And Dell and Spencer are both witnesses to this. But how are they going to let anybody know that this is going on? And Spencer and Dell, they become like amateur detectives, and they're trying to figure out how they can let somebody know that this is going on. And there's also subplots going on at the same time, because you've got Geneva, who is a black woman, and the whole civil rights thing is beginning to explode in America at this, like around 1962, 63. And you've also got the whole nuclear war thing is starting to heat up. We're just getting the nuclear bomb, and there's the assassinations that are going on. President Kennedy is assassinated, and Spencer's a witness to all of this, and he's trying to process all of this. I'm trying to give the reader a historical viewpoint of what went on during the raging 60s, because so much was going on, with Martin Luther King dying, Medgar Evers being assassinated. All of those things are in the book. And Spencer's ability to sketch plays a major part in how it is finalized and how this whole thing is brought out into the open. And it's a mystery. It's got a surprise ending to it.
Okay, Thomas, going to keep us on the edge of our seats there while we take a short break. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Linda McDonald is the owner of Great Life Educational Academy in Sarasota, Florida, a school for educating the general public on various issues. 3 books are coming out. The first one is about the psychology of sales, entitled Soft Selling in the 21st Century, Hardcore Out, Softcore In.
If you heard the expression of hardcore used salesman for cars,
Okay, yeah.
okay, that's what that describes. Hardcore in or out means that you're getting rid of that pressure used car salesman type of approach. It means that you're soft selling, you're educating the people when they make a decision, it's a good one, so that they're not feeling pressured into buying something they don't want. The book is a very easy read. It starts out with a little bit about myself as to how I got into sales. And then in the old days, cars had 3 shifts: forward, reverse, first, second, and third. So the first part of the book is explaining how you should look, how you should dress. The second part of the book is verbalizing how you talk to people to keep control of the subject matter that you're talking about. Instead of asking a yes or no question that somebody can say yes or no to, you would rephrase it as an example for who, when, where, why, and what, so that a person would come back with an answer to your question versus just shutting you out with a yes or no. And then the third part, you start out with an introduction, meeting the people. You have to get them to a place of comfort if you're in sales. You have to make a presentation if you're in sales. Not necessarily a product. I mean, you could be asking your husband or wife if they would like to go out to dinner or go to a movie. Give them a choice close. If you say, do you want to go to a movie? No, I don't feel like it tonight. If you say, would you like to go out to dinner? Oh, no, I don't think so. But if you give them a choice, would you like to go to dinner? Would you like to go to a movie? Most times they're going to give you an answer. If you want to do both, you can't lose. You're going to get what you want. So that's kind of an overview. And then, of course, closing would be asking for the order or giving a choice close to the family member, if that's what you're talking about. But it's basically the psychology and verbiage on how to deal with people.
So it's not necessarily selling a product.
No, the same verbiage works whether you're working personally with somebody or if you're in a Fortune 1000 company. The book is endorsed by Lanier Copiers worldwide. I have trained their salespeople, and that is why if you look at the front of the book, you see a little caption there. And then inside the book is the actual letter of recommendation that they did. And that's a big endorsement. The book was originally written, I was in the insurance industry. And over and above this book, I've written 5 programs in how to make presentations to people on certain subjects. So the book was originally designed, it was a package where the people could actually be in a turnkey business. We specialized in long-term care, final expense, safe alternatives to the stock market, wills and trusts. So those were all presentations that they could go out to associations or businesses or whatever and be in a turnkey business with educating the public versus having to go out and try to cold call and send out mailers and all of that. It replaced it. So the book is an overview of how I train the salespeople on those products. That's how it was originally designed. But the books are going to be worldwide. We've already started selling them. People are contacting us. Groups are contacting us. So each book in the new website that's being designed will be a standalone book, which is going to take them back to Amazon. So the 3 books will be standalone, and then also there'll be another page where they can buy the individual presentations if they want to. They can buy the sales training program if they want to on how to use the programs. So, it's going to be a much broader presentation that's going to be available out there.
All right. Nice job, Linda. Thank you. It took several decades and almost a dozen rewrites, but finally, Lon Orr put the finishing touches on Apricot Marmalade and the Edmondson Transmittal, which means?
Well, after I got out of the Army in the late 60s, serving in military intelligence over in Bangkok, it occurred to me that I had had some kind of interesting experiences and gained some unique insights, and maybe I should try my hand at writing a book. I started the book probably in the 80s, and it's actually a satire about a team of U.S. military intelligence agents in Thailand during the Vietnam War, which was going on not terribly far away. These agents are kind of an inept group, sort of stumbling along, and when they do have successes, they're usually almost accidental. The Edmondson Transmittal is a report prepared by an agent in a remote part of the country that outlines a communist plan to overthrow the government, but the agent is murdered and his report disappears. And that happens fairly early in the book. So a good part of the story focuses on the other agents trying to locate this report and to stop the coup from happening, with a few blunders along the way. One of the things I think is interesting about the book is it touches on or deals with a number of different intelligence services that were operating in Thailand at the time, including the Soviet intelligence services, the KGB and the GRU. And of course, the CIA was over there as well. And Thailand has its own intelligence service, which they refer to as the Armed Forces Security Center. And all of those agencies come into play in one way or another.
Is it like MASH?
Well, actually, I think there's some similarities between this book and MASH and maybe Catch-22, in that it's about a group of characters who are doing the best they can, but usually don't get it right the first time, and sometimes not even the second time. But they're well intentioned, and they kind of stumble along. It's not slapstick exactly. It's more sophisticated than that. I like to think of it as adult level humor. There are references to real world events, like obviously the Vietnam War. Occasionally, there might be a reference to LBJ, who happened to be president at the time, to William Westmoreland, who was running the U.S. operation, the military operation in Vietnam at the time. But other than that, I don't think there are any real world figures or real world events. It's fiction.
Satire at its best, you say?
Yeah, it's funny. At least that was my intent, and I've been assured by many people that it is. I did buy several of the books at half price and distributed several of them. And thus far, it's kind of been friends and relatives and friends of relatives, that sort of thing. The sequel, by the way, is Apricot Marmalade and the Sangsuan Equation. So long titles, but worth remembering.
All right, Lon, thank you. Spencer Wagner appreciates every day he spends with his grandmother. In fact, she's the inspiration for his book entitled Grace, the Forgetful Goose.
Well, my grandma, who's 92, has dementia. I had a dedication page that I mentioned her and my family. It is about Grace heading to the store, and she comes across friends of hers, and they're like, "Hey, can you pick me up this? Can you pick me up that?" And then she loses her way. And there is Sneaky Snake, Bernie the Bear, Phil the Fox, and Grumpy Gator. and Sneaky Snake, because she's waddling to the store, and he's like, "Why don't you fly?" And she forgets how to fly. So he helps her out, and she realizes she can fly. And then, because it got so late, being lost in the forest, she returns home and decides to go with a group of her geese friends to go with her.
So she won't get lost.
Right.
How will the series progress beyond that?
I believe I'm going to do a winter one, because geese fly south for the winter. Well, she forgets to fly south, and all of her flock of geese friends all start disappearing. And so then she realizes what she can do, what she does, or what she can do where she's at in the winter. Like all of her friends, like Bernie, he's hibernating. So you learn what all her friends do during that time.
Like Bernie the bear, Phil the fox, Grumpy Gator.
Yep. Always remember your friends.
Grace the Forgetful Goose has a lot of people who love her.
Mm-hmm. And when I do signings, that's the message that I write in the book, is always remember your friends.
So where have you been doing signings?
My book is online at Barnes & Nobles and Walmart. Those are my two go-tos. I contacted the Walmart headquarters, and for Barnes & Nobles, I actually went to the stores, and they gave me the email to contact the person that does the events. I grew up reading, Curious George, all the books that you grew up reading, and I was like, you know what? I want to be a part of that. I want to be remembered to giving a good message to children and, helping them grow.
How's your grandmother doing?
She's doing very well.
Does she know you?
Yeah, she actually does, and she's very proud of me and says to keep writing.
Well, it's nice to know she remembers you, Spencer. Thank you. And we are good for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Hope you are too. Thank you, authors, and thank you for dropping by on this 4th of July weekend. Hope you're having a big maskless party wherever you are and that you're safe and happy. Let's get cracking on that book you've been reading to write, all right? And if you need any further inspiration, we have a bunch of podcasts for download at 710WOR.com. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.